Here's one for you. Paint tubes. Give it the old switcheroo and you get taint pubes. Oh, that's worth one of these. He squeaks out of his anus. But then don't we all? See, it's one of my favourite things to do is spoonerisms, where you swap around the first letters of the words. But what I like to do as an activity, I take time out of my day specifically to do it, is while I'm scrolling Instagram, I see someone's posted a picture or a photo, a drawing, whatever it may be. And sometimes people will, for a caption, put just 2 words that, describe or represent the image they've posted. Or maybe completely unrelated random words. But sometimes they will put just the 2 words because it just fits or whatever. And I saw one recently. I didn't finish what I was saying. So what I like to do is scroll through Instagram, and when I see that someone has done that I I like to take the 2 words in the caption, fuck the letters around a bit, just the 2 first letters, and then as a comment post that, and it's really, really funny. And I saw one recently that said paint tubes, because the artist had painted a picture of some paint tubes. So the caption, annoyingly, their caption was paint tubes and then a bunch of other words and shit, like in sentences, prose. I don't know if the word prose is necessarily applicable, but they put a bunch of other words, and so I didn't actually comment taint pubes, even though it's fucking hilarious, because I mean those are 2 very funny words independently. Taint, that's between your balls and your anus. His taint, like there, that's his taint. And pubes. Pubes. Everyone has pubes, except, children and those people that don't have any body hair. We call them slitherers because they just slither around. I don't know. But also, this artist is not a mutual friend of an artist. There's quite a big. They are a pretty big artist that does real art, like oil paintings of paint tubes and still lives and I don't know, fucking whatever. And so I thought if I commented taint pubes within the comments of that post, it might not be taken in quite the way I imagined. People would be like, "What? What is that? I don't know. It's just irrelevant. It's not. What the fuck is that?" So I didn't comment that. And again, because it was the caption was paint tubes, blurb, 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 blurb. Probably painted this on something board with these brushes and these paints. Thanks to fucking Trespass Art Supplies for you sending me free shit. I thought taint pubes was pretty funny though, wasn't it? Taint pubes. There was another funny one though, actually, that I did comment on. Somebody had drawn a picture of a water monster, and so they that'll do. So they put the caption under the drawing of their water monster, said "water monster." It said, I can't write, water monster, and so I put a comment underneath that said Morto, actually says Mater, but then it said Wonster. Mortar Wonster. That's a funny sounding word. Wonster. I'm going to hit her right in the Wonster. Ewan wants to be funny. And sometimes he is. And he isn't. He's some. That was actually a very apt little, almost sarcastic little squeak, wasn't it? Squeak for me, squeaky apple. Tell me how funny I was. All right then. That's not a big one. I could have commented that on the taint pubes thing. I could have been like, haha, that's a squeaky apple right there. and no one would know that I meant. See, it's funny because that's not relevant to anything. It's not fun or funny at all. It's a bit of a nothing episode today, really, to be honest. I just can't be fucked. I recorded a bit and then the microphone wasn't plugged in. I recorded a whole segment because I record my shit in segments. Just because it's easier to do it in separate parts and then put it together. And so I recorded the first segment and I get up to hit don't record anymore. The don't record anymore please button on my telephone that I record on. Only to realise the microphone wasn't plugged in, was it? Which means there would be audio because the phone records audio, but it's just like really tinny and distant sounding audio. There's been times where I've thought where that's happened in like a smaller section of a video, and I've thought, well, I can just put in a note. I can overlay a note in the video saying apologies for the audio quality. It will get better at this time, whatever. But it was like a whole 25-minute section of the podcast, and that's I've had people not watch podcasts for much less than that. So. And I'm aware that the audio quality isn't it's hardly professional level audio recording for the tiddly silly little microphone that I do use, but it's better than the phone audio. So I'm having to re-record and I just can't be bothered. So I might just do some doodling and just talk some shit. It's just a hangout. Like the old days when we used to just hang out. Do you remember just hanging out? When we just hang out. Back in the old days when we just hang out in the old days. Just like back in the old days when we just hang out. Like we would back in the old days. Do you remember that? Back in the old days. When we just, we're just hanging out back in the old days. Do you remember hanging out? Back in the old days. Look at that, I drew that, that's cool, isn't it? Look, all the cross-hatching on this bullseye. Hit a bullseye! That's what I say when I... something, sex with your mum joke. I'm just showing you, because I'm going to doodle in the sketchbook, but I thought we'd just have a little look through. Oh, a bunch of graffiti. Moscow there. Can't talk about that one. That's illegal, that is. Some goblins and shit. Oh, a little gun Viking there. I like this guy. This guy in his hoodie. The hoodie goblin. It's funny. Speaking of hanging out in the old days, that's funny, isn't it? Look, one of my post-it notes that I wrote. A skate company / shirt called Naught. And then the logo is a skull, but you could have like a really badly drawn, like dumb looking skull. And just like that actually it looks quite close to, give it like cross-eyed little skull like that, and then it'd be naught. See, it's like zero. It's like this with this like how Sid from Toy Story, he wears a zero shirt but without the text but the skull is like a zero skateboard's skull on his shirt. In case you didn't notice that, that's a detail in the thing. See, it's like zero, but it's naught. See, it's naught. You could put Astro in front of it, couldn't you? And then it'd be a space zero. That's about the caliber of what to expect in this episode. I don't know, let's draw some shit. I was thinking though, speaking of back in the day, do you remember hanging out back in the day, when we just hang out back in the day? Let me have a sip of my beverage. Because when you'd hang out back in the day, if you remember hanging out back in the day, when you just hang out, and that would be all you do, is you just hang out for days and days, just back in the day, just hanging out. Fucking hell. Jesus. Yeah, it's funny when you repeat the same thing sometimes, Ewan. Sometimes. It doesn't mean you have to do it all of the time. I really am that person that, like, they tell a joke and then, or like reference something and you laugh the first time they do it because it's the first time they've done it. And as far as you know, it's not the first time they've done it because it's just a time they have done it because you're not aware that they're going to be doing it more in the future. But then obviously that person realizes, oh, I said a particular thing and it made people laugh. So now I'll just say that same thing over and over and over again. Every time you see him. There was a person in college that would always do that. Fuck, I can't. Oh no, I was going to say I can't remember his name. I very much remember his name. I'm just not going to say it because that'd be rude. Well, I almost said it. I almost said his name. I was like, no, fuck it, say his name. No, but he did that. This particular person at college, he would always. I can't remember what it was probably like some fucking Family Guy reference or something. And you know he like referenced the Family Guy thing, and we were all like, oh, ha 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 ha, yeah, that I also saw that. And then anytime we like saw him, he'd bring that up again. He'd be like, hey, remember that Family Guy reference? And we'd be like, yep, we remember. We sure do remember that Family Guy reference. Still, you know, it's not like, you know, we didn't forget. I mean, you have said it every day this week, so we're not really going to forget, are we? So now that's just me now. Do you remember hanging out back in the day? Do you remember back in the day when you just? That was fun though, wasn't it? Hanging out back in the day, when that's all that mattered is just hanging out, and that's all you could just get away with, just hanging out all day, every day, back in the day. Do you remember that? Do you remember hanging out back in the day? Do you remember when Ewan was funny and interesting? No, because it never happened. Speaking of back in the day, something I remembered, a random memory occurred to me. Something I haven't thought about since it happened. And it's nothing major. It's really like probably incredibly uninteresting. I don't know what I'm doing, but I don't like it. It's like a skull with legs and arms and it's holding an axe. But I hate it. I think it looks shit. Maybe if his leg was like this instead, it would look better. Maybe it wouldn't. Maybe it's just shit, and it's just always going to be shit, and I can't stop it from being shit. Maybe that's my burden. It just is what it is. Yeah, it's hardly a fascinating, interesting memory. It's just a memory. So occasionally, I think around college times, people would have house parties. You know, parents go away for the weekend. Hey, everyone, come over have a house party. You know? And back then, I didn't drink. I think largely because I was scared to drink. I just didn't, you know. I had led a very sort of protected childhood in terms of like worldly pleasures or whatever, so I didn't drink. But I'd get invited to these house parties because, you know, Ewan was really fucking cool, so let's invite him to our house parties because he's brilliant. He's cool, he's funny, he's sexy, he draws cool shit. Let's have Ewan at our house party. That'd be great. Yeah, let's do that. Idiots. They didn't know what they were doing, clearly. That was before I thought it was funny to just repeat the same sentence over and over again in place of actual jokes. But then occasionally it was like small house parties with just a few just friends, and it was cool. It was fun to just hang out with people who I like at college, and it's fun to hang out with them. Do you know back in the day when you just used to hang out? But occasionally often I wouldn't necessarily be aware of this ahead of time, but it would turn out to be the case that it was like a bit of a bigger house party with more people, like friends of friends of friends, people I didn't know. And so I didn't feel comfortable like being my usual loud, fun, funny, rambunctious, raucous self. So I'd retreat inwards. Very often, I'd find myself in the kitchen, because that was sort of, sometimes people would have like kitchen-based parties where they would hang out in the kitchen. But I think most of the times these sort of parties happen at college. They were in slightly bigger houses, and they had like nice living room areas where people would largely congregate. So I'd end up like going away into the kitchen just to be in a quiet space, and then I'd be like, well, now what do? I was in the kitchen. I don't feel comfortable enough to like eat people's food in this house that I don't know. So what I ended up doing, because back then I made sure, partly because, you know, it sort of made sense, but partly because I was like, I'm an artist, so I have to have like artistic quirks. I'd have pens on me at all times. I'd have like a couple of Sharpies, ballpoint pens. I'd just have pens on me at all times, because, you know, what if I want to draw and impress people that I'm around? I have to be able to do that at a moment's notice. So I'd have pockets full of pens in a stranger's house, in a kitchen, sometimes alone, sometimes not. So what I would often do is I'd find cereal boxes, and I'd take the bag out of the cereal boxes and leave that on the side. So the cereal's untampered with. It's in its little, you know, plastic bag. And then I'd open up the cereal box, turn it inside out, and I'd draw on it. I'd just sit there drawing on the cereal box. And that was good fun. And then occasionally, you know, people would come in and they'd be like, oh, cool, what are you drawing? Oh, that's really cool. Oh, wow, you're so good at drawing. I didn't know you could draw. And this would be like, you know, people I didn't know, and they just come into the kitchen to get a drink or whatever, and see this random guy sitting at the kitchen table drawing on fucking... Oh, I remember one specific time, actually. It was a Weetabix box. Because I don't know if it was the person's house that said it, but a few people had gathered round because I was drawing, and, you know, I was just interesting, and so everyone wants to gather around and see what I'm doing. There was a couple of people there that were friends, and then a couple of other people had gathered round. And they were like, ah, cool, he's drawing shit. And so they were talking amongst themselves. They weren't all just focused on me drawing, but that was sort of, I was inadvertently at the centre of this group of people. And then one person did say, where did you get a Weetabix box from? You could see I was drawing on a Weetabix box. And I guess part of it was folded over, or so, I don't know. But yeah, he was confused as to why I was drawing on a Weetabix box and where the Weetabix box came from. And I think it might have been his house. So he was like, wait, why does he have a Weetabix box? Not necessarily realising it was his Weetabix box. That's quite funny. That was good times. But that's one of the ways I think I may have a benefit or a beneficial point in my favour if I were to ever end up in jail for any reason. Because it's almost like a survival technique, like a social survival technique of being able to just sit and draw shit and people go, oh, look, it's a thing. You know, draw skulls and Pokemon and whatever. I figure if I'm in prison, you know, I can draw tits. I can just draw porn for people. I'd probably actually do really well in prison if I put myself out there as like a pornography generation machine, where people can just say, you know, I'll give you fucking my lunch snacks or whatever the fuck they have in prison. I don't know. I'll give you one of my pillows. I'll give you a blowjob if you draw me two Brazilian girls farting on each other, and they've both got 3 tits each. And I'll be like, yeah, all right, cool, I'll draw that here. Here's some hand-drawn porn. That's the name of a website that exists, by the way. I think it's just drawn porn, but either way. And yeah, I could just draw the most ludicrous, hot, steamy, passionate porn that people can imagine. And in prison, that's got to be like gold, you know. Just whatever you can think of, any porn you can think of, I can draw it. And I can draw it in such a way that it's obviously a drawing, but it's, you know, drawn well enough that it's still pretty hot, maybe. So I think, in that respect, I might sort of survive okay in prison, because I have the benefit of that. And, you know, a lifetime spent honing the skill of just sitting, drawing, when I don't know what else to do. And that would be me in prison. I don't know what the fuck I'm going to do. I'll just sit and draw. And I mean, people will probably see that happening and be like, oh, hey, you can draw. And I can design tattoos for people. You know, I could do people's name in graffiti, draw the, you know, pictures of people's girlfriends and shit. I don't know. I think it was a David Cho story I read about him, because, you know, a large part of him coming up is the fact that he spent a few months in prison in Japan, and he made a whole big thing about it, like no one had ever been locked up abroad before. And I think he was saying how he said it, I don't know how much truth there is to it, but apparently he drew a picture of a bunch of the inmates as characters from Lord of the Rings, and allegedly they had a big fight amongst them to decide who gets to keep the drawing, because all the inmates he drew wanted to keep the drawing because it contained them as a character from Lord of the Rings, and so they had a big fight and beat each other up, and I guess the winner got to keep the drawing or something like that. And, you know, take it with a grain of salt. It's David Cho. He's an unreliable narrator, to say the least. But it sounds like the sort of thing that could happen in a prison. And I figure if I ever get to prison, or when I inevitably end up there, for, I don't know, whatever reason, that will be my saving grace, will be the fact that I used to draw on cereal boxes in people's houses, and so now I can do dumb shit like that, and dumb shit like whatever the fuck this is. Jesus. Ooh, would you like to take a look inside my vagina? But also at an art book. Oh, it's Lobster Robin again. Are we going to look at Lobster Robin's art book again? No. No, we're not. We're doing something different this time. Something quite different. Something I've never done before on the podcast. It's nothing too crazy. Right, so what's going to happen is you are going to watch, if you want, I guess, you don't have to, but if you're going to play along, you're going to watch Lobster Robin's latest sketchbook tour video that he just uploaded to his YouTube channel. Go and subscribe to him, I guess. I mean, if you want, you have freedom of choice. You fought a war in the pre-existence and you won, and therefore you get to have freedom of choice, freedom of agency to do what you want, because God said go and be free, but also do exactly what I do, or you don't love me, and then you'll burn in hell forever and ever and ever. But because of that, you can choose to go and watch and subscribe to and watch everything I just said. But right, so what? right. What's going to happen is the link is in. It will be on the first line of the description of this video. Just scroll down just a little bit. This might not work if you're watching on a television. I don't know if that will work on a television. You might have to be on like a laptop or a phone or something. I don't know. You figure it out. You fucking figure it out. I can't hold your hand through everything. Jesus. You're an adult. Fucking act like it. So when I tell you to, click on that link, and then that will take you to Lobster Robin's sketchbook tour video. It's very, very good. I recommend. That's why I'm putting it in here as an art book, because I want it to be like we are looking through his sketchbook together. but he's looking through it and he talks you through it, so there's no need. It's like a collab, but it's not a collab. I have asked his permission to do this. I would have done it without his permission because I do what I want, because I won a war in the pre-existence that allows me to have the freedom of agency to choose to do these things. But I did get his permission, and he, we're like boyfriends, so he said, yeah, it's fine, babe, do it. Hello, Robin, if you decide to watch this, by the way. So do that. So in a minute, I will tell you to do that. So this video right here, this current, not his, but this one, will still be playing, but nothing will happen. This won't be here. I just had this as a prop for the bit. This video will keep playing, and then the next bit of this podcast will happen, hopefully, if I time it right, at the exact time that Lobster Robin's sketchbook tour video finishes. And then you can just open up and click on the link, like double click or whatever, or right click or whatever it is, open Robin's video in a new tab, and then keep this one playing, and then watch Robin's video, and then that'll finish, and then you'll probably hear me on the other tab going, "Oh, that was good, wasn't it? Now let's another bit of the podcast." Right, so that's going to happen basically now. Right, so scroll down to the description in this video. You'll see the link. Click it in 3, 2, 1, now. Oh, well, that was very good, wasn't it? Oh, isn't he brilliant? Isn't he just bloody brilliant? Oh, Lobster bloody Robin, isn't he great? And we all just bloody love a man with two animals in his name for some reason. Do you know, it was a long time before I even realised that it's like Robin is an animal. I just thought it was like Robin as a name. I didn't even really clock that. Oh yeah, it's also a fucking animal, isn't it? Imagine that. Imagine a lobster robin. Imagine a robin with lobster claws, or like a lobster, a robin with lobster claws, or a lobster with wings. I don't know. He is good though, isn't he? He's one of those people that's like annoyingly good. Where he does, there's a lot of pictures in like his sketchbooks and stuff, and a lot of lines and marks that he makes that I see, and I'm just like, I wanna fucking do that. God damn it. Sometimes I hate my art, sometimes I'm okay with it. Sometimes I feel like I've got it all worked out and it's all good. But then sometimes I feel wholly inadequate and I see something like, Robster Lobbins art and I think, shit! God damn it! I want to do more shit like what he's doing instead of the shit that I'm doing. The absolute shite that I'm doing. This fucking, whatever the fuck nonsense this is. Do you know the song Common People by Pulp, I think? I wanna live like common people. I wanna do whatever common people do. Wanna sleep with common people. I wanna sleep with common people like you. The basis of that song is, in case you were previously unaware, it's all in the lyrics, I'm not divulging deep lore that you might not have picked up on. There's a girl from Greece, very sort of like upper middle class girl from Greece, went to an expensive school to study fucking arts or whatever. Sees this guy in a bar or a pub or something, and she's like, "Oh, you're common. I like common people like you. I want to do common people things. I want to be like regular common folk. I want to get away from my hoity-toity upbringing, and I want to hang out with the common people, the common man, and do like weird, like common people things, like just bumming about and rent a flat above a shop, but never went to school. At least you're so the lyrics to the song. And keeping with the theme of do you remember back in the day? Back in the day, this was back at university now, a little bit after college, that I was talking about before. At university, I think, on reflection, I don't know if I was aware at the time. I don't know if I had the sense to really be aware of anything at the time. I was a fucking idiot at that age. I really was. But I, on reflection, I think I was somebody's common person. I was seeing a girl at university for a little while, sort of towards the end there. And I think she's lovely, lovely, lovely girl. Nothing, well, maybe some bad things to say about her. Nothing bad to say about her, really. But I think as I came to sort of know her a bit more, I think I realised she came from a very sort of like well-to-do background. I think she was, I guess, what you could consider sort of upper middle class in terms of like her family and money and stuff. I went to her house a couple of times and it was very much like that. Like, it felt expensive, where the sort of house I walk into and I don't want to touch anything. So I feel like and this has legitimately happened, I sat on someone's bed once and I got up and there was just a huge ink stain I don't even know how, but it wasn't. They had white sheets, and I sat on their bed. This is a different person to who we're talking about now, but I sat on someone's bed, and I stood up, and there was just ink stains, just because that's just me. I'm just filthy. I just always have been and am, and I guess will be, just fucking filthy and rotten and horrible. I just leave stains wherever I go. Sometimes they're ink, sometimes they're piss, shit, and cum. But that's to say, I go into like nice houses, and I'm just scared to touch anything because I feel like I'm just gonna make a mess just by being there. So that was, like this girl's house was like that. Like I walked in and I was just like, oh god, this place is too expensive for me to be in. I should fuck off. I should go somewhere else. It's quite likely that this is starting to look like Lobster Robin's work, which, you can sort of expect it, can't you? It's going to, because I don't normally draw arms like this. Well, sometimes, but not typically. Just a bit weird, isn't it? And yeah, I think, so that girl, I'm not going to get into the details of sexy sex stuff, but she wanted to try things that she hadn't tried previously, which is nothing too outrageous that she wanted to try, but it is, stuff that I assume, sort of after later on finding out, was probably not the sort of stuff most people in her life would generally be into, because she comes from a very sort of stuck-up, classist, fucking piece of shit background. And I think she delighted in the fact that I was dirty and poor, and I didn't do rich people activities. I didn't go to restaurants or have dinners or go to balls. If I go to balls, it's because I'm sucking a penis and I'm going to the balls. I don't go to balls to dance or whatever. But yeah, I think I was her, like, I described it previously to someone as, I think I was like a vacation for her in a way. Like, she had a little time away from what the sort of life she's maybe normally used to. She got to be with a common person. Not that I consider myself common. I'm far better than common people, because I'm an artist, and artists are just better in general. So suck a dick, common fuckers. But she had her little taste of poor person life, and I think that's sort of the song, Common People, is quite a good song just in general, but it's good because it does speak to that kind of trope of, you see it quite a lot nowadays, of like rich people adopting working class or poor people culture, or like clothing typically worn by people with less money because they can't necessarily afford like fine clothes, so they wear clothes that might appear shabby or discoloured or hand mended or whatever, and so rich people adopt that as an aesthetic, as a style, but they pay ludicrous amounts of money for that because they're all fucking bastards and they can eat shit and fuck off and die, frankly. So that song does a very good job of sort of illustrating that, which I think's good. And I think I did have a taste of that. Like I say, I wasn't really aware of at the time, but on reflection, fuck that bitch. It was unnecessary, really. But that also kind of leads into another thing I wanted to mention, I guess, which is I feel very lonely of late. It's like sex is whatever. I'm used to not having sex. I've spent most of my life not having sex, not sleeping with anyone. So I'm used to that. So if I have like a dry spell, maybe an elongated dry spell, it's just sort of typical life. It's what I'm used to. I honestly, if I am seeing someone at any given time, if I'm sleeping with someone, it feels peculiar. There's been many times, well, many times, there have been times where I'm seeing someone, they are with me, they're maybe just sat on my bed, and I'm just looking at them like in my head thinking, what is happening? Like what who the fuck is this person? And why is this person here in my home, sat on my bed, wearing my t-shirt, getting their fucking anus stains on my sheets? Jesus Christ. Because it feels peculiar to have another person in my space. It feels much more normal to just be alone all the time, which, you know, I guess in a way is not great, but it's life. It's how it is. So that's all to say, you know, it's not necessarily about like, I just want to get laid, because it's not really what it is, but it's, you know, you'll get lonely sometimes. I'm used to being alone, but sometimes the feeling of loneliness feels a lot stronger than at other times. And so I am feeling that currently, and I guess recently I've just been feeling particularly lonely. To the point where I start to think, oh, maybe I need to act more normal, and I worry, like, what if, you know, whatever peculiar situation occurred that ended up having somebody come over. My place is not filthy, but like the carpet's pretty, not filthy again, but you know, there's a lot of like fluff and dust in my carpet that won't like hoover out. Like I'm gonna have to like scrub the dust out of my, because it's a dark carpet as well. So shit gets into the carpet and gets trodden in, or just left there and grows into the carpet. I don't know. To the point where the only way to get it out would be like to scrub it out. And I have a couple of rugs which are easier to hoover, and they cover large portions of my floor, so it's not too bad. But it's the sort of thing that, like, in the daylight, which I try not to let in too much, it shows up. Again, it's a dark carpet, like white fluff from my socks or whatever shows up. And occasionally I look around and I'm like, oh, it looks like if a normal person walked in, they'd be like, it's dirty. Your home's filthy. The last person I was seeing actually said, like, you know, you need to hoover in here, Ewan. And I told that bitch to get out. She fucking do one. I mean, she wasn't wrong, but it's not nice to say, is it? Someone invites you into their home and you're like, you need to fucking clean up. This place is a fucking mess. I keep it tidy. It's just there's like dust and shit, because I'm not spending my time dusting all the time. But then, that kind of leads into what I was sort of leading into saying ultimately, is I'm trying to sort of battle it out between maybe I need to be more normal and be more clean, and then maybe people will like me more, and then maybe I'll be less lonely. But at the same time, I'm an artist. I'm a fucking artist. I don't have to be clean and tidy and normal, because I'm not clean and tidy and normal. I'm barely human. Jesus. I'm too human a lot of times, I feel, but ultimately, barely that. And that's sort of one of the joys of being an artist. See, if somebody is fortunate enough to be invited into my home, they should embrace the dirt and the filth and the rot and the mould, and be like, well, Ewan's an artist, of course this is how he lives, because he's focused on doing this fucking whatever bullshit. Look, this is a penis, but you can hardly tell because it doesn't look like one, because that's how artists are. Like, you see Francis Bacon's studio, and it's just fucking piled with shit, and there's just dust this thick on the sides and stuff. And he uses the dust in his paintings as texture and whatever else. And not to be like, I'm just like Francis Bacon, because I'm not, in various ways. But it's just that's sort of almost typical of just like how it sort of is to be an artist. your mind, your brain directs itself into the parts of life that it deems important, which is art and expression and creation, to just doing the shit that your head does because you're an artist and that's it. That's all you've got, so that's what it does. It doesn't necessarily easily allow you to also keep a tidy home and make sure all the chores are done and your laundry's always done and your dishes are always done and everything's, you know, presentable for people who live normal lives to come and see. And so that's, you know, I'm obviously I'm not old, but you know, I get older every year, and I'm far closer to 40 than I am to 20. I can say that much. And yeah, parts of me think, well, you know, I should keep a nice, tidy, normal home. But then it's like, no, fuck off. I don't give a shit. I haven't grown up properly mentally. I'm defective in a lot of ways, so fuck it. That's just, it is what it is. That's how I am. That's me. If I have to be lonely, then fine, I'll be lonely. I jerk myself off better than anyone else can anyway, so I'm fine in that respect. And yeah, I think, and if you're gonna date an artist or sleep with an artist or be around an artist, be with an artist, you sort of, if you're not willing to embrace the, I don't know, the mess of it all, then fuck off. If you're not willing to embrace the parts of an artist that make the person an artist, then yeah, fuck off. You're not spending your time with the right people. Because some people might want to be with an artist because they're like, oh, my boyfriend's an artist and he paints me and draws me. It's so and he's got all these things everywhere. He creates things and he's all these stuff. He works on comics and he does this and that. And he makes a living doing art. Can you imagine? But then they don't necessarily want everything that leads up to that, which is, you know, potentially a lifetime of trauma and an inability to actually cope in a general societal sense, and maybe failings in terms of, you know, regular human activities. But they make sick fucking artwork sometimes, so fucking deal with it, you dumb bitch. That's point. That's. I'm not calling anyone specifically a bitch. I'm just saying, you know, bitch. Take that, you bitch. Ooh. You know, I'm not. I don't mean to be demeaning.